So again, this is Kendra. We're going to get started, and I just want to make sure that if you're curious about what we were talking about, the manual, I'm going to show you a picture here. Give me just a second. This is a copy. Can you guys see it? Is it showing? Yeah. Okay. I have two screens going on, so usually when I'm echoing, it means I'm on the right one. But this is the copy of the at-risk manual. This is one that we sent you the link for. This is also located in the resource library. It's broken up into 7 parts because it's so colorful that it's just the document is very, it's a heavy document. So if they didn't make it so colorful, we could have sent this to you, but it's saying it's too large to send. But we did give you guys the link. It's only 90 pages. You guys can print that out, but this was given to you whenever we came out to Start You Without Risk. And this is the manual that we'll mostly be looking in. Again, I will also be referencing the training manual that you see, that you get every year as well. Just make sure. I just seem to be having, every time we do these trainings, I seem to have technical issues. That's okay. My computer just doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, so again, this is the at-risk school manual. I'm hoping you guys are seeing what the guidance. So again, when we go through this presentation, in a lot of cases, you're going to see a little blue box in the slide. And when you have a blue box, if it says ATR and then it has a number next to it, that's the page number to reference at the at-risk guide. If it has TM next to it, then I'm referring to the training manual, and that's the page to look at. So if after the presentation's over and you saw some stuff on the slides and you want to go back and reference, that is what the meanings are. ATR is the at-risk guide and TM is our CACFP training manual. Again, we mailed those out a couple weeks ago. If you haven't received it yet, you should be getting it soon. If not, it is also located in the resource library under other documents. So you do have access to that as well. Okay, so we're gonna go over the at-risk meals. It offers federal funding to after-school programs that serve a meal and or a snack to children in low-income areas. So it's a component of our child care side. So you must apply to this at-risk program. You have to apply through it through CACFP. Even if you're a school district, this is on our CACFP side, not our school side. So getting to know your consultant. On page 4 of the training manual lists the consultants. If you're not sure who your consultants are, we have had several changes. Pat Gower is retiring in a couple of weeks. Denise Whelan retired in February. It's just been crazy. Our whole office has changed in the office. So right now, Edgar has changed positions. So if you dealt with Edgar, he is in a different role. Karen Davis took Edgar's position. Rhonda Stevenson took a position on the school side, and Jennifer Pryor took her position. So we have Lisa King, Jennifer Pryor, and Karen Davis on our CACFP side. Also, we had some changes in our office where we now have a director of daycares and now we have a director of schools. So you may be hearing the name Cassie Riddell, and she is over our CACFP daycare side. And then Jennifer has taken the executive director's position. So we've had a lot of changes since COVID up here that we forget how much changes we've had on top of the COVID changes. So if you hear some different names and familiar names, that's why we've just had a lot of changes. So again, when you get the consultant list, we did hire for Pat's position. Her name is Sandy. I'm not for sure on her start date, but she has not started yet. So it's ever evolving here in the State Department. But anytime you have any questions, call us. You can call the state office as well, but we really suggest you get to know your consultant because they're the ones that come out to do the reviews. So they're the ones you should really be in a lot of contact with. So integrity. Integrity, there's several things that are very big with USDA, and integrity is one of them. This has been going on, I think, for 3 or 4 years now, but all of our reviews are now unannounced. We don't do any on the school side. They are announced, but if you are doing a CACFP program, when we come out to do a review, we will not be letting you know that we were coming. There has been some changes a little bit with that due to COVID. Some consultants have been in some centers, some have not. It just depends on the territory. It depends on the situation. But there has been a little bit of notice due to the fact of COVID. If some other things with the integrity aspect, if you are declared seriously deficient through the CACFP review, then you are required to attend training within 60 days. And we have a CACFP manual training that's offered every second Tuesday of the month. And it is our full day training that is required to come to. There may be a few exceptions, but that is the one that's required for SDs, and anybody who's new has to attend the new, it goes over everything, and it's full day. So a big one is all CACFP records must be readily available for review at all times at the institution. So even if you're not there and we show up to do a review, we should still have access to the records. So just make sure that if you're not there, that you cross-train somebody so we are aware of, so they are aware that if we come and we need to look at records, that we can get them. And when we do look at records, we'll be going, you put in the application where the records are going to be located. So wherever that says, that's where we're going to go. So just make sure that all the stuff is up to date. And I cannot suggest strongly enough in our system, I'm going to talk about it again because we're doing these trainings, we're finding a lot of loopholes or a lot of things that aren't happening. But make sure everything in the system is up to date at all times, especially the business maintenance page. That is the contact. So when we're asking you to sign up for these, I've had it happen 3 times this past week. When we're sending out the notifications, when we're sending out stuff regarding these reviews or regarding these trainings, it's sending an email to the person in the contact page, on the business maintenance page in the contact. So if that person, I've had 3 instances where that person really has nothing to do with, they just maybe are the owner, but they don't go to any trainings, they don't do anything with the aspect of it. So these people are getting emails, but are not the ones that are attending. So just make sure that the person in the business maintenance page is the person that will need to be getting the contact information. That's the information that we always use, is the contact person in the business maintenance for all correspondence, not just for the trainings, but in all other cases as well. So if you're not familiar, this is the website that you will go to. This is where the CACFP application is located. This is also where you can go to get access to claims. On the left-hand side, it's kind of depending on your computer screen, but it's kind of a mustardy yellowish type panel. And in that panel, you'll see the resource library. That is where all of our interactive forms are. Our at-risk guide is in there. Our training manual is in there. Our memos. And a matter of fact, I spent a little bit of time yesterday. We've added more headings. So we had everything was really jumbled in there. We've added new headings. We have an at-risk heading now. We have the training manual heading. We have our interactive forms at the very bottom. It's called under worksheets. So if you can't find them, just scroll all the way to the bottom. They're under worksheets, but we do have it set up a little bit easier now. We also have a mill pattern heading. So hopefully it's broken up easier where it's easier to find things, because before everything was just so jumbled. But as a reminder on this program, the federal fiscal year is October 1 to September 30th. So all CACFP records must be maintained for 3 years. So you need to have records for 18, 19, and 20, and then you'll also keep your current year records. Again, our fiscal year is starting October 1, and if you were not aware, the application is now available for you to renew. So if you haven't gone out there yet, you can go out there and start to renew your application. So something else our office has started doing is once a month, the first Tuesday of the month. So it will also be, I think, October 1st this year, or this upcoming month. We're also doing online application training. So if you need help going step by step through the application to help fill it out, you can sign up for that training in the resource library, or under the training calendar. Again, we're doing that training the first Tuesday of the month. And it's about a 2 to 3 hour training. Again, it's a step-by-step. I suggest if you have like an iPhone or an iPad, you put the Zoom training on that, and then on your computer, you can go through the application at the same time and get that filled out. So these are, since we've just had a lot going on up here, and we're realizing some things that we have really needed to be asking for. And this again is in the at-risk training manual on page 24 through 27. But if you're going to apply for at-risk, these are the items that we need. And again, I am Kendra, who I'm now director of training. Dana Parker was director of training. And like I said, Cassie is director of CACFP. We are really pushing training a lot, and we're trying to be very aggressive with it. We've been in our roles since April, but it's just a whirlwind with all of COVID. But we're wanting to add training for multi-sites. We want to add training for financials, administrative budget type stuff. We're trying to add a lot of different training, and the management plan / VCA, which is our viability, accountability, and capability, and accountability, that's what that stands for. We're going to start having trainings on that because this is stuff that's going to be required for everybody, not just at risk. And we're phasing that in. But if you are new and if you are applying for at risk, don't be surprised if we ask for a VCA plan. We will send it to you. And then we're also doing trainings on how to fill that out. You will also need to check the NDL list. If you don't know how to get on the NDL list, you do have to have a sign-in. And if you go to the training manual on page 271, it does give you information on how to set up a login. What the national disqualification list is anybody or any institution on that list cannot participate in our program for 7 years. What's also required for at-risk sponsors is you have to have an area map or a low-income report for any sites that you have. If you're at a school district, we just use the low income report. We don't need an area map. But if you are a sponsor or if you just have a location, you're not a school district, you do have to give us a map. You have to tell us what school district. It's by district. It's not by what school's located next to you. Because like here in Oklahoma County or in Oklahoma City area, you may be next door to an elementary school that's an Oklahoma City site. But that would not be the area of attendance that if you were to live at that location, it's based on the area of attendance of where that child would go to school at. So we have to have an area map showing what school site or what school district you're in, and then we'll need a low income report for that. And the low income report is also located in the resource library. Something else that's needed for at-risk sites is a license or something from DHS documentation if it's not required that you have a license. So an example is if you operate in less than 15 hours a week, we will need something stating that from DHS that you are not needing a license not required. We have made some forms. So if we're asking for this information from you, our office will send you a form that you can send to DHS that they can approve that way. So don't forget about, again, our online application and agreement. It is located right now. You do have access to it where you can fill it out for fiscal year 21 right now. Again, any updates that or changes that occur, please make sure it's up to date. Anytime you change your times, it needs to be located in the system. Any changes at all need to be made in the system. That is what we go by. If we need contact information, we look at the business maintenance page. If we need to come out, we go by the addresses that are in there. If we're needing your records, we go by the information that's in the system. If we're having to come out to look at meals, it's unannounced. So if you give us wrong meal times, again, these can all be findings in your review, but that I cannot stress enough, the information in the application and agreement needs to be up to date. So please check that regularly. If anybody contracts for food service, especially from a school district, if you contract food with a school district, that contract is valid from July 1 to June 30th. So we do have to have a copy of that contract, but a school, their fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. So that's why the food contract has to be the same. But every year we do, if you do any food contracting, we do need a copy of that contract. Again, if it is with the school district, your contract will be good from July 1st to June 30th. And then if any institution is going out for bid for any services, you must have a contract approved by our office first before you can go out to bid. We really don't have many or any that do this, but just an FYI, if you do want a contract for any services, you do have to have a contract approved by our office before you can go out to bid. And the institution must submit a budget. This is in your application, but we are wanting to get more into depth about this. USDA is pretty particular about finances, and they're pretty particular about accountability. So this is goals that we are working towards. And again, we will be having trainings. We want to keep our trainings short. With the Zoom world, it's great, but it's hard to do all day trainings, and for anybody, for us to do them, for you guys to listen. But just keep looking back. We will send emails out when we add trainings. Like if we're sitting here saying we want to add a budget, administrate, a budget or financial training, we will send an email out, but just go check regularly with our training manual. I'm hoping to get some of those at the first of the year. So I don't see it happening a lot before December, but I'm really hoping we can get stuff put together for January. So, and then again, on the first Tuesday of the month, we offer CACFP application training if you need help filling out your application, or if you have somebody new that's filling it out. So this is this page. When you go to that web link, this is what it shows you. So again, this is where you enter your username and password. If you look over on that left-hand column side, you can see the resource library, the second one from the bottom. You have to go to the application side to see the resource library. And then again, once you enter your username and information, that's when you will pull up the training calendar in that column as well. And if you can see underneath the apple that says enter the claims, and that's where you go to fill out your claims. If you're ever on the claim side and you don't know how to get back to your application side, again, where that apple is at the very top corner, look underneath it. If it says enter applications, then if you click that, it will take you to the application side. That way you have access to the training calendar and to the resource library. So again, it actually just changed this week that we did add new headings. So now when you go into it, it will say, instead of center forms and documents, the first thing we have is at risk. And you can see the first several right there is that at-risk guide. So it is broken up into 8 parts, but we also put the link out there that you can just open up a Word document and you click on the link or copy and paste the link into your computer system, and it will take you to this at-risk manual. So a lot of great information is in that resource library. Again, this is the business maintenance page. It's all the way at the very bottom, and it says contact information for CACFP. This is the part that's really important. It doesn't matter whose information is in there, but it does need to be somebody that they can get the emails and get the emails where they need to go. I was talking with a church, and the person in there was the pastor. Well, the pastor really has nothing to do with the daycare. He is a contact because he's the church pastor, but he has nothing to do with the daycare. So I would really suggest that whoever is the contact information for CACFP they'll be the ones that get all the emails. So that name, again, it's okay if it's not the director. It's just that's the information that we go by when we need to contact the at-risk program. And also, again, that's where when you sign up for training, that's where the emails and stuff are going to go to that email box. So I can't stress this enough, but whenever you click, when you're going through your application and you click on the agreement, it's on CACFP number 7. I highly suggest, if you have not read it or printed it, I would do so. This is what you're agreeing to be on our program. For reimbursement for CACFP, these are the terms and conditions. Most people just click at the bottom, I think hit next page, and then hit submit, just to get it over with. But if you don't know what you're agreeing to, the terms and conditions, then I mean, sometimes people are like, I didn't know about this. Well, it was in the agreement, application and agreement. And if you can see, I don't know if you can read it, but number 1 is be financially viable, administratively capable, and have an effective internal controls to ensure program accountability. And that is what our VCA is. And I'll be going over more with that. But it is very important that you read. If you have not read the agreement, I would really suggest print it out and read it at least one time of what you're agreeing to be on the CACFP program. So this is an example of the checklist that you will see when you go in. This is a dummy account. So that Sweet Pea is just a dummy account. So this is what it will look like when you go in to do your application. Once you get everything in there, you'll have some check marks, but make sure you go into each section and make sure the information is up to date and hit submit when you're done. Again, you can see where it says state agency institution agreement. Number 7, that's the one that tells you what you're agreeing to. And this one is for multi-sided, where it says, because the sponsor application for participation is in the second spot. But if you're a single-sided, then your budget is at the very bottom of the checklist. Make sure you're updating your budgets, because yes, last year when I was helping approve, a lot of people were like, oh, that's been my budget since the beginning. We are starting to look very close at the budget. The budget is just stating what you think you're going to spend or what you think you're going to get in reimbursement for the following year. So, and when we go through some of the training, when you're doing your expenditures and stuff, you can't go over your budget. You can always update your budget, but your information needs to jive with your budget. So whenever you do come on the program, and last year there were certain things that we would upload, like your DUNS information, and if you have a license, we updated that information, but you were able to upload anything else down in our uploaded forms, our documents area. This year, that is no longer the case. Our agency will be uploading all documents. If you have not seen this website or the email address, the cacfp@sde.ok.gov, everyone in our CACFP program side has access to this email address. So if you want to send your DUNS here, just make sure you put your DUNS, the name of your center or school, and your agreement number, and then that way they will update that information for you. But you will no longer be able to upload any documents. It's just got, the thing is that people were uploading stuff and they couldn't upload what they wanted to. They would just pick something else and use it as that header name, and it's all messed up now. So we're having to re-upload a lot of documents and get it cleaned up. So now we're just taking control and not allowing anybody but our office to upload. Again, you can still fax, but also this is our CACFP website that you can email. You can email not just documents, but if you have questions, you can email it there. They'll forward it to the person that may have it. It's just, this is a really good email address to have, and it's really easy, but this will get your questions answered, documents uploaded, whatever is needed, you can send it to this address. Oh, I have this slide in here twice because it's that important to make sure you read the agreement. So again, all institutions must be viable, capable, and accountable. And again, this is in the at-risk training manual. It's also in our CACFP manual, but if you want to see it in the at-risk, it's on page 26 through 27. What viable means is you are financially viable. The point of this program is to feed children more nutritious food that they may not have access to. Our dollars are not to keep a business open. The money that we give you is for more nutritious food. If there's a glitch and USDA can't pay, it should not be a problem at all. And that's what the VCA does. What the VCA, when we ask for this document, it's asking, how are you financially viable? What is your cash flow? What are some of the things? How do you receive money? What is your operations like? We also ask about if you're capable. What's your administrative capability? Who is staffed? What are their roles? We have to have an organizational chart. These are some things that I'm thinking of. We're phasing the VCA in. If you are new, you'll be doing this. If you are SD, and coming on this fiscal year, if you were SD last year and you're coming on, we will not approve your application until you fill out a VCA and it's approved by our office. And Cassie has been sending those out, and then we are doing a VCA training, and she'll let you guys know about that. But again, if you're SD, this is something we're all phasing in. We're going through an ME right now with USDA. It just started Monday. We are right now being audited on our CACFP side. So this is stuff that they have been looking at. And then we also just make sure that you have accountability with our program. If you are a school district, because a lot of our schools are at risk, we won't be asking for a VCA. It's because you have an audit. You do the big audit. And we have a copy of the audit. We get, and as long as you're fine in your child nutrition program, we won't be asking for the VCA because you have to do your big annual audit every year. So I don't know if this has happened to you this year yet or not, but we just want to make people aware. We get, not just do we get audited by the USDA, which we're going through now, but we also get audited by state auditors. Well, this year, state auditors have requested copies of all your paperwork. And I'm sitting here actually in front of a slew of paperwork that I wish I could take a picture and show you. But literally anything that our office would look at for a review, for the month of and the day of review, we have to have a copy of every single item. We wish we were joking. This is not fun for us. We want nothing to do with this, but this is something that they have required. We're hoping that maybe this will change soon. We seem to be the only state that we've talked to with USDA that our state auditors are requiring this. Nobody else does. So just don't be surprised if you get, because we don't know when this is ending. We assume it's going on for several years, but unfortunately. So just don't be surprised if when we come out to do a review, we ask for every single bit of documentation that we're seeing. We have to have a copy to give to the auditors. So we're not thrilled either. So we're going to go over some of the basic responsibilities of the program, some record keeping, menu as served, training, civil rights, any contracting, some inventory, and a little bit about other requirements. Again, we're not going to cover the food aspect. I'm going to cover some highlights of things that we see out there. But again, I highly recommend that you attend to one of our meal requirements, meal pattern requirement trainings. We do cover CACFP, meal pattern requirements with at risk. We'll first talk about the eligibility. So you must be organized, and it is a primarily care in an after-school setting. So it goes on during a school calendar. So the school calendar is usually from August to May. So as long as you're operating from August to May, so say you're in Oklahoma City, I'm just throwing out stuff. So say where you want to have your site is in an Oklahoma City public school district. So you, whatever the first day of school that Oklahoma City starts is when you can start your program. And the last day that Oklahoma City would be in session, that's when you have to end your program. And then after that, you can go on to seamless, or you can go on to summer feeding. But again, it's during the school year. It must provide an organized educational or enrichment activity, and you must be in an area of attendance where it's at least 50% free and reduced price meals. And that's what you find on the low income report. That's the documentation that you send us. Again, this information is in the at-risk manual on page 14. So an example, if a high school does not have, say you're in a school, you're in a school district, and say you're in a small town and they have an elementary, a middle school, and a high school. And if a high school does not have 50% free and reduced enrollment, but the middle school in the same attendance area does, then that high school would be able to participate because it's called a feeder school. And it means kids that go from the middle school to the high, end up feeding into the high school, so that would be able to count. So it used to be years and years and years ago, eligibility was only by elementary sites only, and about I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, USDA changed it to where you can use high school, middle school, or elementary school in that attendance area. So you can use any three of those schools that might qualify. You can use any of that information. And you can only use free and reduced price. You can only use area eligibility. For at risk, you are not able to use census data. You're only able to use census data for summer feeding, but not for at risk. So the activities must provide regularly educational or enrichment. They must be organized, structured, and supervised. Again, it needs to be available and open to all students. They don't have to participate to eat, but they do have to be able to participate in a program if they want. So an example of this is, I'll use a school district. We have a lot of schools that are on the Century 21 grant for their elementary school. So maybe they have Century 21 grant going on at the elementary school, and then at high school they have band, they have drama practice, they may have like photography class. They're offering all these items. Well, any child can come and eat. It's open to everybody, just like summer feeding. But and there are activities available for them, but that doesn't mean that they have to go to those activities to participate, to eat a meal. So to be eligible to participate, they must be school age, a child through age 18. It's okay if they turn 19 during the school year. A person with disability who meets the person with disability requirements. They must be participating in an approved after-school care program, and meals must be consumed on site. You cannot take meals off site. I know there's been and we're talking pre-COVID. I know there's some things with COVID, but this is on a typical at-risk program, non-COVID. So athletic programs. Students who are part of a sports team can receive after-school meals, but the program cannot be limited to a sports team. So if you have a school and you're like, yeah, we want to serve meals to our football team only, that's not allowed on this program. There has to be enrichment and educational activities going on at the same time. And again, like a school's a good example. I've had it to where there's a football practice, but then there's also Century 21 grant, there's a photography class, there's band practice, there's all this enrichment and educational stuff going on. They can participate. It's just, if you were like, hey, I want to feed my athletes only, that's not allowable. So meals and snacks may be reimbursed if they are served after the school day has ended or on weekends or holidays, including vacation periods during the regular school year. So again, if it's in Oklahoma, it's usually August through May is the school calendar year. You can serve it during spring break, you can serve during Christmas break, but once the school calendar has ended, you cannot serve meals any longer. And it has to be, again, after the school day has ended. There is one little caveat to that, and that is if you are at a school district and if you operate 1 hour longer than the traditional school day. So in Oklahoma, the school day is 6 hours. If you can serve a meal in the 7th hour, but in order to do so, we will need what we call a bell schedule. Oops, hold on. So you'll have to give us what's called the bell schedule, or I tell people all the time, just whatever you give accreditation, because it cannot include recess or lunch in that 7th hour. So, but you can right now serve in the 7th hour if you're a school district, but you do have to give us a bell schedule. And again, lunch and recess cannot be calculated in the 7th hour time. So some examples, if a school's instruction time is from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and they would not be able to serve meals before 3 p.m. or in the 7th hour. If the school's instructional time is from 7:45 to 3:45, they would be able to serve during the 7th hour or 3:15 if lunchtime was dedicated at 30 minutes. But again, the time of meals is after the school day ends, again, unless you're in that 7th hour, but you cannot serve it. So this is a big one too. What we were noticing in our application last year, we have a beginning time and an ending time. And I did a lot of the at-risk applications, and we were noticing is what people put as their beginning time was different than what was in our system. And they were falling into that 6th hour, not going to the 7th hour. So you have to make sure you put your beginning time of serving and your end timing of serving. And it has to jive with either the school day ending or it has to jive with being in that 7th hour if you're a school district. Okay, so are we getting some people dropping and coming back in? We'll take about a 5-minute. Okay. Okay, so we have some people dropping, come back on. So what slide do you want me to go back to? Is it the 7th hour for school districts serving in the 7th hour? Yes. Okay. I'm going to give it just a couple minutes if somebody is getting out, coming back in. In the chat, if you're a school district, put school. I'm curious of how many school districts we have in here, and I'm curious of how many are not school districts. So if you are with a school, you can just type school or say me, or I'm just curious how many schools that we have. Okay. I figured most of the people at the at-risk training would be schools. That's why we kind of did an at-risk training, is because I hated for you guys to sit through a 5-hour training for just doing the at-risk program. So to start over again with the 7th hour, if you're a school district, if you want to serve meals during the school day before the bell rings, you cannot serve it before. You have to have at least a minimum of 6 hours instructional time, and you can serve the meal in the 7th hour. If you are only going to school instructional time for 6 hours, you cannot serve a meal during the school day. It has to be when the school day has ended. So, and that is in the at-risk training manual on page 13. And it's done by state. So in the state of Oklahoma, our instructional time is 6 hours. That is what's required for a school district. So if you go longer than 6 hours, so you go 7 or 8 hours, but you have to take out lunchtime and you have to take out recess time. And if you have a 7th hour, you can serve meals during that hour. But how we will know this is we need a copy of the bell schedule. We need we will ask for, and we have to have it on file if you're serving before the school day has ended. So like if you're telling me you serve meals at 4:30, then I know you're serving after the school bell has rang, so I'm not gonna ask for a bell schedule. But if you're telling me you're serving your meals at 2:45, I need to see a bell schedule. I need to see your class schedule, the schedule that you give your accreditation officer that says what time, what hours are going to be in. And I've had it some where like the high school has to be served at a different time than the elementary school because they both fall under different hours. Like I've seen some where the elementary school doesn't have a 7th hour, but the high school does. So in the state of Oklahoma, instructional time is 6 hours. Anything after that is actually technically considered the school day has ended. So I hope that clarifies. But if you want to serve meals during school before kids leave, we have to make sure that they have a minimum of 6 hours of instructional time, and then that meal is being served in that 7th hour or 8th hour. I've had some in the 8th hour. And if it doesn't, then you cannot serve meals at that time. You have to pick a different time to serve meals. And then this is, again, just the examples. And if you printed out the copy of the slides or want to go back and get the slides, we're leaving the slides out on the resource library. They're going to be out there indefinitely because, again, we're going to be doing this training again in December. So you can always go out and get these slides, and that way you have a reference pages to go to regarding some of this information. Again, at-risk after-school meals have to be served after the school day ends. And again, in Oklahoma, the school day ends after 6 hours. of instruction time. So at-risk meals are not allowed when school is in session. So when at-risk ends, a lot of people switch over to summer feeding. And if you ever want to do that, a lot of schools may already be doing summer feeding. If you don't have to do summer feeding, but we have some at-risk programs that's all they do. Literally, they're just an at-risk program. They don't have a daycare. All they do is just feed children meals. So in that case, if you do want to do summer feeding, you would contact Dee Houston, and this again is her email address that you can email to, and then our office's phone number. So again, with the record keeping, all forms must be maintained daily by month at each site for any institution participating in CACFP. And this is for all of our programs. And again, all records must be kept on site at the location approved in the application. You're getting kicked off. I wonder what the deal is. I'm sorry. Luckily, I'm not having issues. I was having a lot of issues trying to get on this morning. So the numbers haven't dropped considerably yet, but just bounce back on. Honestly, I'm doing this again in the afternoon. It's for multi-sided, but there's only 3 sides difference between the multi-sided and the single-sided. So if you do want to join on again, you're more than welcome to this afternoon. The link is out on the website. You can get on that as well. So some after-school meal documents that we will need is we need attendance records, meal counts, your menu as served or production records, your expenditure reimbursement worksheet along with any supporting documentation, and we need training information including civil rights training. Then we'll go more into some of this stuff. So we need record keeping forms. So we need a daily attendance record. We need enrollment documentation. Something that I highly recommend, it's not required, but I had a couple of districts that did at risk. And the deal is it is open to anybody at the school. At risk is open to anybody, but they may not be participating in any of the programs. They just may come for a meal. So what I suggest is having a sign-in sheet for those that are not enrolled in the enrichment program but are eating. So for instance, I have a school, they had a Century 21 grant. They had about 150 kids enrolled in that, but they were feeding about 200 kids because the siblings would stay up there and wait for a parent to bring them up. And so they would have a meal and maybe work on homework. So what I suggested is those kids not enrolled in the program, just have a sign-in sheet and just have them sign it whenever they're going through the line. And that way, whenever we're looking at your meal counts, we can be like, oh yeah, you had 150 here and then you had an additional 50 kids right here that ate. And I think it also helps you guys kind of have a log of how many kids you're feeding per day. Like you could see on maybe Mondays and Wednesdays you would have 200, but maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays you were only feeding 150 kids. So it's just some stuff I really recommend is having a sign-in sheet for those that are not enrolled. And again, we also need attendance records. And this is just a copy of the attendance record that we have in our manual. You don't have to use the information in our manual, but we do want to see something that has at least the same information that we have. So again, the TM is in the training manual. This is the page number for this form. We also have all of our forms interactive in the resource library at the very bottom under worksheets. So again, here is a copy of what attendance record looks like or whatever you have for your attendance record that we need. So next is the meal count worksheet. Again, we have this as well in our system. I highly suggest you use anything that has to do with math. I would suggest our interactive worksheets. That way the meal counts don't get off. But this is one that you can use. It does have agents and stuff on there, but you can use it for supper and for a snack if you're doing both or just for supper. But we do need to have something that shows your meal counts. Again, you are not required to use our forms, but we do ask that it have some of the same information. I understand some schools, you're only literally serving a supper, but some people are using their counting and claiming system, and that's fine. But we just need something to show us how many kids that you served meals that day. But this adds it all up. So if you're doing tally sheets or whatever you're using, you can just put what you served. If you served 100 kids, it will add all this stuff up at the end, and it's like an edit check. It will add it for you, and then you know what number to claim at the end. So those that do have a daycare center, just make sure on some of your forms that like your attendance and your meal count worksheet and your menu as served forms, if you are a daycare center, please, you need to keep your records separate. So if you need to keep your daycare information separate from your at-risk, and we do have little boxes in the top corner, top right-hand corner, if you mark what your at-risk is and what your regular meals are. Because reminder, you can only serve 2 meals, 1 meal and 1 snack on at-risk. So you could have a child that say it's during spring break and they're there with you for breakfast, lunch, snack. You can only claim 1 meal and 1 snack on at risk, but you can claim the other meal on the regular meals. So you would need them on both information, but just make sure you keep your records separate. If you are a daycare center and you have breakfast, or if you have at risk at your daycare center, we need 2 separate documents. The other form that we need with the CACFP side is your expenditure and reimbursement worksheet. Schools will use your OCAS coding. If you just print us out your OCAS information, I believe it's under 769, and we'll talk about OCAS here later on. But we do have to see what you're spending on the program. So if you are a regular center, you're probably used to using this expenditure and reimbursement worksheet. This is where you list everything that you purchased for the month. And again, if you're a school, a lot of times I would just ask to see your OCAS from 769. Just show me what you're spending and show me your revenue. That works for us. But we do have to see, because with this program, not only we're making sure that you're financially viable, meaning that our money is not keeping your doors open. Our money is for more nutritious meals or to get food to kids. To help get more nutritious food out. The other aspect of it is the money that we do give you in reimbursement is what we call, you have to be nonprofit. So what that means is if we give you $1,000 a month, you have to spend at least $1,000 or not more on our program only. So if we're giving you $1,000 a month and you're spending like $1,000 in food plus you add labor in, then you're spending all the money on our program. We understand some months you may make a little bit of a profit, but you have to have what we call a 3-month operating. You can, as long as you stay under whatever it costs you to operate for 3 months, you have to stay under that amount. But if you go over that, then that means you're making a profit. So if we're giving you reimbursement for $1,000 and every month you're only spending $500 on food and labor and all CACFP information, then you're making money, and you can't make money on the government. We're just here to help feed children and give them more nutritious meals. I can't stress that enough because that's what part of this VCA is all about. And again, on the reimbursement worksheet, we need to see allowable CACFP expenses. So we can see administrative and food service labor. So that's any labor only with CACFP. If you are telling, if you're trying to put teachers on there and all they're doing is instruction time, that has nothing to do with our program. It's the food aspect of it. It's buying the food. It's filling out our paperwork. It's not the teacher who's doing the enrichment program. It's only CACFP approved expenses. It must be in your budget and in order to charge that off. So if you're telling us that you have 3 people that are helping you with food service labor, they're helping you get the meals prepared, and then you put on your CACFP expenditure worksheet 7 people, well, you only have 3 approved. You can't go over that. You can always update your information in your application at any time. But again, just make sure everything jives. Just like I said, everything needs to stay up to date. It can be your food purchases on that expenditure reimbursement, your non-food purchases, and that's stuff like foil or paper plates or anything like that, and any other miscellaneous expenses. And as an idea of a miscellaneous expense for child nutrition would be like, maybe you needed a new microwave, or maybe you need a can opener or pots and pans, whatever you're needing to help operate our program. So again, just make sure it's allowable products, because I was in the field for 10 years and I saw a lot of things that were not allowable.
Siblings may say that are being served that are not indulged. They're wanting to know if those meals are reimbursable, and I don't want to.
Oh, yeah. So I see that there's a question. I'm going to kind of open up the chat about siblings. So with at risk, it's a lot like the summer feeding program. So the program is open to everybody to come and eat. And you do have to have enrolled activity, like activities and enrichment programs where kids are enrolled in. But a child doesn't have to attend that to eat a meal. They can still eat a meal, even if they're not enrolled or attending something. Like maybe they're staying to do homework, or because they're waiting with brother, but the brother is enrolled in a program and staying and eating. That other child can still eat, and the meal is reimbursable. It's just they're participating in the meal, but they're not participating in any of the programs, but there just has to be programs available for them to do. And then our school uses Keystone. So it doesn't really have much to do with the expenditure reimbursement with the food service management company. We will look at the invoice, and they should be invoicing you for CACFP meals, but we will look at your OCAS, your 769. We'll ask to see your revenue and your expenditure. So I hope that answers that question. So with the school, we'll mostly it's just easier for us to ask to pull your 769 from your, like I said, from the treasurer, and then from the lady at the district, or whoever you have at the district. We just need to see what your reimbursements are, which we can pull that up, but we also need to see what you're expensing to 769. So again, going back to the allowable expenditures, all expenses charged off to CACFP again must be in the budget. And then all items that are used for the entire center. So this is a lot for daycare centers, but it could also be for your school district. So say you're buying paper towels, or you're just an at-risk program, but you're operating out of a church. So say you buy paper towels. Well, those paper towels are for you, they're for the kitchen, and they're for the rest of the church, or for the rest of the center. You have to prorate the cost. And I didn't finish that cost. So the cost must be prorated. So only items or services solely used for CACF purchases can be charged off to the program. Because we've seen it a lot where they're like, oh, I'm charging off toilet paper, I'm charging off, that has nothing to do with CACFP. That is for your center or for your entity, but toilet paper is nothing that would be used for CACFP purposes. So this is actually a common, this is also, we have added it into our training manual. My computer is kind of acting up again. Let's see if I can get it to work. Hold on. Man, today is a day. Give me just a second. Okay, here we go. Maybe. Okay. So these are some unallowable expenses, and if you can tell by this list, this is actual items that we have seen for the program. But if an item does not meet meal pattern requirements for CACFP, like if you're a school district, we're going to talk about it. You can use the school meal patterns. That's perfectly fine. If you're CACFP, if it doesn't meet CACFP requirements, for instance, like you can't do sweet snacks like donuts, that stuff does not count on CACFP. If you're serving it, it's an extra, and it cannot be, it's not an allowable expense. If the item is not claimed for reimbursement, I've had some centers that have ordered pizza from Little Caesars. It's not reimbursable because it doesn't meet meal pattern requirements. So if you're not going to, and they choose not to claim the meal, and if you're not going to claim the meal, then you can't charge off those expenses. We're going to talk about donated foods here in a moment, but anything like for the classroom or any enrichment activities, that does not count as CACFP allowable. Again, paper towels for bathrooms or any other location besides the kitchen. If you have extras like coffee or creamer or tea for the adults, that is not allowable because that's for adults, not for the children. So this is new this year. If you receive any donated products, food, milk, anything you receive that's donated, it cannot be part of the reimbursable meal. We are paying a reimbursement for a meal, and if you're getting everything for free, then why are you honestly on the program serving meals and getting reimbursement for that? Because again, you have to be in a nonprofit status. We were finding a lot of people were doing most of their food donated, but then they weren't spending the food on related expenses. So they weren't spending the money. If anybody does want to donate anything, you can serve it out, but it cannot be part of the reimbursable meal. So say someone donates chips. Again, you can serve it as an extra, like just hand it out, but it cannot be on your menu as served as part of the grain for that day because it was donated. And we look at that stuff based on like the receipts that you send and stuff like that. So we kind of get this question, and I'm surprised we really never talked about it before, but anytime someone gets an overclaim during a review, this is usually why. A lot of times it's because when we show up, there are no records, or records we say are readily available. We understand if it's like, if you're say have multiple sites, or say you're at the high school and your records are up at the elementary, we understand like it may not be available right at that moment. We need like an hour to go get them because you serve at the elementary, but you say that you keep them at the high school, which we understand you just hadn't gotten them yet at the high school site. We understand, but if you have no records to validate anything, we will take back money. If your meal counts are not properly maintained or inaccurate numbers, if anything, if your documentation does not support the claim, sharing receipts with another facility. And we had this question in our big training, what does that mean? If you're multi-sited and you have multiple sites, I understand that you're buying for different sites, but I'm talking about, we have had daycare A give daycare B receipts for food that served at daycare A but not daycare B. It's just they're helping them and giving them receipts. Claiming any adults, no adults can be claimed. Program adults can eat, but they cannot be claimed. So kind of the main reasons why people may get money taken back for the administrative side during one of these reviews. Also, something that we have is if you, for instance, if you do not have receipts that don't support or show enough food items were purchased, or if inventory was not maintained. So an example is if you have milk, you don't have enough, say you, on your menu of serve forms, you serve 50 gallons of milk, but we're seeing receipts for 20 gallons of milk and you don't have any inventory showing that you have any milk. You're short on milk. And so we will take back all the meals that any supporting documentation we don't have for that. In another example I've used, and it's happened to me, I was at a center and they said they used 50 pounds of cheese for the month. And I pulled up the receipts and they bought 5 pounds of cheese for the entire month and they had no inventory of cheese. And if you don't keep an inventory, which I'll talk about, then we can take those meals back because you don't have any supporting documentation. We only look at receipts for the month that we're reviewing. So if we come out in May and we're looking at April records, we can only look at April 1 to April 30th receipts. Anything else needs to be on inventory. Which is not mandatory, but we highly suggest keeping an inventory. So now we're going to go over the other required documents to be on the at-risk program. And this is for all schools, everyone. You do have to have a building for the future. You do need to put your contact information on here. You don't necessarily have to send this out, but I'll show you an example of one, but we do suggest, especially if you're a school, to post it because it does state on the building for the future at risk. If you are, say, an at-risk, that is just an entity that all you do is serve after school meals at, say, a church, I would give a copy out to the parents, letting them know that you're on the program. But if you're a school district, you can just post this someplace. If you're a daycare center, you're already supposed to be giving out the building for the future, so it shouldn't be an issue. But this is an example of what it looks like. And again, if you see down here at this little corner, the bottom left-hand corner, that's where you put your information, who you are. And if you're a school, you can just put it on a bulletin board someplace where we can see it. Next is inventory. Again, receipts must be available for review purposes. We do have inventory sheets that you can use. It's optional. It is optional for both, but we just highly recommend it. Again, we can only look at the receipts from the month. So my example was April. So if you say you purchase milk every Tuesday, and Tuesday happened to be March 30th, and you bought 15 gallons of milk. Well, for the month of April, you were 5 gallons short. Well, you didn't put it on your end of the month milk inventory sheet, so I was not allowed to put those 15 gallons in that you bought on March 30th, the end of the day, into your receipts. So just make sure, if you want to keep an inventory, if you're a school district, you do have to keep perpetual inventory, especially if you're getting commodities. It's not required for CACFP, but it's just very helpful to have inventory. Not just that, but like I tell people all the time, your receipts and your inventory and your menu as served form should all be matching. And doing this as long as I have, and being in just daycare centers, there's a lot of times where they're saying they're purchasing, like, by receipt, just say you're purchasing 50 pounds of ground beef, and you serve 20 pounds of ground beef on your menu as served forms, but then you go to your freezer and there's only 10 pounds left. Well, what happened to the other 20 pounds? I mean, a lot of times food can go missing, and it just helps having record, like everything should match. Your receipt should, and your inventory and your menu as served should all match. It's just good business practice, put it that way. But most people, to be honest, they will keep a milk inventory, but they will not keep it an actual food inventory. I just highly, highly suggest it if you are a daycare center. Schools do keep them, but if you're a daycare center, I would highly suggest it. So training. Every entity must have what we call a CACFP trainer designated. So the trainer must conduct annual training and document date, agenda, topics, and signatures. And we're going to go over the required topics here in a moment. I know you may be a school system, but you are still required. This is a CACFP program, and you are required to still go over these topics. It doesn't have to be anything huge and in depth. It can be literally a 10 to 20-minute conversation with one person. You can do it in a little meeting style. What happens a lot of times is people will come to this training, and then they'll go back and just talk to their staff about what we talked about in the training, and that will suffice. Again, trainings must be completed by September 30th of each year. Or if you're new, it has to be done prior to operating. But these are the topics: CACFP meal patterns, reimbursement systems, accurate meal counts, claim submission, claim review process, record keeping, and civil rights. If you are a school district and you have done civil rights training already, you do not have to do it again. We will be offering CACFP civil rights October 1st via Zoom, but we also have for schools and for CACFP, we do have an online version. It's self-paced. If you go under the resource library, the instructions to get onto that is there. If you're a school, you can use the school one if you would like, and the instructions to do that are in the other documents on the school side. But if you want to do CACFP side, you can do that side as well. I actually just looked yesterday, and we've already had 1,400 people take the civil rights training for the daycare side via the self-paced. Again, it's a 1-hour training we'll be doing via Zoom on October 1st. You can sign up for that in the training calendar. It'll be from 1 to 2 October 1st. Again, these topics don't have to go hugely in depth. You could set someone down like your cook and say, these are the meal patterns. We'll accept National School Lunch meal patterns if you're doing the National School Lunch meal patterns. But you can be like, you know, these are the meal patterns, and if you don't serve X, Y, and Z, or if we're short, then that messes with our claims. So you can do things as that as well. It doesn't have to be a full day of training. So the different methods of training, the two most popular are the conference or the meeting style or one-on-one. The other two is online or self-paced, and those, if you choose to do them, you must have a post-test and a pre-test. Most do not do that. That's why we really just kind of focus on the meeting style or the one-on-one. So those topics have to be covered in a year, but they don't have to be to the same people. So for instance, if like you have a cook and you want to just go over the meal patterns with them, then if you want to do it one-on-one with that person, you can do that. Maybe you have somebody else that helps you with the claims, then you can go and talk to them about the claiming system. And that's just a one-on-one training. But just make sure you document the date that you talked to them, what you talked about. I would talk about use the topic as well. So say you talk to Susie, you talk about the claims reimbursement systems, and then maybe go in a little bit of detail, like what exactly you talked about, like how do you log in, and this is what you claim, and then just talk the date that you did that. And we need to see that when we come out to do a review. We need to see your training records. So again, civil rights training, it's in our OK Edge Next Thought process. All staff must be trained on civil rights. If anybody is doing anything with our program, they need to be trained on civil rights. If it is a teacher helping serve, if it is a teacher that is marking off meals, they need to have civil rights training. I understand with schools, you've done a school civil rights, that's acceptable. If a teacher has done civil rights, but it was on the school side, not which school side we meaning the USDE side, the United States Department of Education side, but not USDA, because USDA civil rights is different than USDE civil rights. As long as they had civil rights, and then if you give them a copy of USDA's non-discrimination statement, then that will be acceptable. In reality, there's 14 things that can be, the reason I say that is because there's 14 things that the United States government deems as areas of discrimination. USDA only recognizes 7 of those because of the way our program is lined up. So that's what it tells you in the non-discrimination statement of what you cannot discriminate against for USDA. Confusing, I know, but it's just part of the process. Again, the civil rights, you have to make sure you have your Injustice for All poster hung someplace visible, have your civil rights training. And again, these are the areas that can, if someone has a civil rights complaint, these are the complaints that they can file it on. Race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. If somebody does have a civil rights complaint, in the training manual, you have a complaint form. Just have that person fill it out and send it to USDA. So something new this year, if you've done the application before, last year we required civil rights training and then you had to send us the documentation, your sign-in sheets and all that information. We're not doing that this year. If you are a school, you may or may not know, but there's a couple of questions in the school application that we do. It's called an attestation. What it means is there's under civil rights, it'll say, I have done civil rights training. And then you click on that box and you're ensuring to us that you have done that. But we will not make you send us anything for civil rights, but it will be looked at during the review. So just make sure you have all that information on file when we come out to look at it. So again, this year when you're doing the application, you do not have to upload civil rights information. You don't have to show it to us. You just have to click a box saying, yes, we have done civil rights training for this fiscal year or for the last fiscal year. And then you can proceed, but we will need to see the documentation when we come out to do the review. And then this is a copy of the Injustice for All poster. This should look familiar to everybody. Again, just make sure it's in a visible location. I'm going to briefly go over procurement. This is another training that I'm going to be doing for all programs, not just CACFP, for schools, for daycares, for everybody. It's a 2-hour training. I'm hoping to do one in November or December. I'm going to do 2 a year, but it's over procurement. School districts have a procurement that they have to do, a procurement review. They're talking about doing a separate procurement review for CACFP as well. So again, you do have to have a procurement plan on file. And these are the items that must include is your methods, your code of conduct, minority firms information, charter procedures, and protest procedures. If you do not have a procurement plan, go to the CACFP resource library or go to the school's other documents, and in both of those we have procurement plan prototypes. Open it up, put your center or school name on them, and then just fill it out. There's questions throughout. The one on CACFP side is 4 pages. The school side is 14 pages. There's reasons for that. It meets the review requirements. So we suggest just using our prototype. Leave everything in there because it meets all the qualifications that you need to suffice for USDA. School districts, you must have it board approved. So if you don't have a latest one, make sure you get that one board approved. And on procurement reviews, we try to do them the same year as your AR, but that doesn't always happen due to some other activities through USDA, meaning if you are a food service management company or not. So I'm going to briefly go over the methods of procurement. I'm mostly only going to talk about informal because that's what pretty much everybody is doing. If you have anything that's formal, I'll talk about what it is. Get with me. I'll have somebody put my email address in the chat. I help do procurement reviews for 3 years, so I can definitely help. But if you have more questions, I'm going to just go over the basics of what the methods of procurement are. The first one is, and this really won't apply to the schools, it'll mostly apply to daycare centers, but micro purchasing is any total transaction under $10,000 when you do not check prices, but you're buying from multiple people. So what that means is you're buying your food from Sam's, from Walmart, from Crest, from Brahms. You're buying food from everybody and you're not really checking prices. The prices are reasonable, but you're buying from a lot of different entities. So if you're not buying from a lot of different entities, then you're not doing micro purchasing. You have to buy items from different sources, Costco, Sam's. Say if you're using like Benny Keith, Sam's, Walmart, you're buying from multiple sources. You're not required that's just what it means is you're buying from multiple sources. No checking prices, but the prices are reasonable. You're spreading the wealth. Again, you're buying from multiple people. You're spreading your money throughout. But honestly, schools are mostly, and to be honest, most people are using small purchase. Small purchase is anything under $250,000 per that vendor or per that invoice. What it means is you are checking prices. If you can tell me that Walmart milk is $5 and Crest milk is $4.50, you just checked prices. You're doing small purchase procedures. At school districts, you're required to pretty much go out on bid because you're using a vendor. But if you are just, say, a daycare, you don't have to necessarily write what we call specifications. As long as you contact 2 sources or tell us what prices are or whatever, you can justify why you're using who you're using. But small purchase is you're checking prices, and you can buy from 1 vendor, you can buy from 2, but you're checking prices. Micro purchasing is you are not checking prices, but you are buying from multiple sources. My big one, I'll just say like with a school district, they'll always put like, well, it was under $10,000. It was pest control. Well, but you didn't buy from several sources. You only used 1 guy. So you have to check prices. If you're going to buy from 1 person, you have to check prices and then tell us why you chose that person. So formal, briefly, formal is just a lot more work and requirements. It's if you're spending over $250,000 per like vendor or per, so say you're using Benny Keith or Cisco or Tankersley or any of those, and you're spending over $250,000, you have to do formal procurement. Contact me. There's special things you have to do. You have to have specifications. You have to make an advertisement into the paper. And there's 2 types of formal procurement. We have what's called a sealed bid and an RFP. Again, I don't want to go too much into this because most of you are not doing this. Again, I'm going to have a procurement training, I think in November, December, that will talk about the whole procurement process from beginning to end. But the main 2 that centers will be using is what we call informal, which would be micro purchasing or either micro purchasing or Small purchase, which small purchase is the most common. If you are contracting for food, so say you have a contract with a school district, or you have a contract with any other entity, we have to have a copy of that agreement. We have two agreements. We have two agreement prototypes. If you're a school and using a food service management company contract, that's okay. We have that information on file. This is if like you're a daycare or an entity and say you serve at a school, so you're just contracting with the school to have them provide, you're paying them for the food. Contact our office to make sure you have the right agreement, because we have one that's for schools and say a tech center, and we have one that's for other entities. So if you are contracting for food, make sure you have the correct one from our office. If you are a school and with a food service management company, we do not need it. We already have that on file, because you have to go through our office anyway to do a food service management company contract. If you are contracting for food service, if you contract with a school district, so if you're a daycare and you get your meals from a school, the school is responsible for the production records. They will keep a production record and say, on that production record, they'll have, say, 50 meals or however many meals that they're giving you. That school or vendor will also give you what we call a contract meal delivery receipt. That is your form of what was served and what was not served. The center or the entity keeps that contract meal delivery receipt form. That's your record of what was served and to make sure that enough food was served. And then what happens is, so if you contract with the school will bill the institution for the food, and then CACFP, your program, will claim the meal, but you pay the district a direct fee. I hope that makes sense. We don't have a lot of people that contract, but that's just kind of how the contracting does go. If you do with a school, they're responsible for the production records. But that contract meal delivery sheet should show everything that you're receiving. If there's a CN label, it should say there's a CN label. It should tell you how to serve. It should tell you how many portions. So say they give you a number 10 can of fruit, let's say applesauce, and they're telling you serve it out as a half cup portion, and it gives you 35 portions. So that, it just need to say like applesauce, number 10 can, half cups. And that way you guys know how to serve it out and to know how much food that they gave you to make sure they gave you enough food. They need to sign it. Whoever drops off the food, they have to sign it saying that that's what they gave you and the temperatures are okay. And then you have to sign it saying that they did give you everything that said on that delivery receipt. Again, if you do contract with the public school, a school is required to charge you. These are the rates a school is required to charge you. So if you're like, man, this rate's kind of high, and you're going with a school district, they are required to charge you this price. They don't have a choice. It is governed by USDA if you're a daycare center. Also, if just school districts in general, if you contract with a daycare, you have to provide you have to serve CACFP meals. So that means they can't have sweet stuff. You have to serve things that meet meal pattern requirements for CACFP, not NSLP. Just FYI, if you so if you're a school and you contract with a Head Start program, they're usually on our CACFP program. You just make sure that they are getting meals that meet the CACFP requirements. And also, if you're contracting with the school, then that contract is good from July 1 to June 30th. So we do need a new contract before July 1, because that is the school fiscal year. Okay, we're going to briefly go over some of the meal pattern requirements. Meals must be served free to all children. Schools, they're the only ones that get commodities, and they can use that for suppers and snacks. Meals must be eaten on site. Meals need to be served during the program time, and children must be enrolled in Even Start, Head Start, or school to participate. So it's for school-age children. That's what this means. If they're enrolled in a Head Start, they can also participate, but it's for kids that participate that are enrolled in a school. If they're under the age, they cannot participate. Again, only 2 meals per day may be served. One can be a main meal and one can be a snack. So the meal pattern requirements, again, I'm not going to go in depth, but just to let you know, if you are a school district, you have a choice to do the CACFP meal patterns or a choice to stay on the school lunch meal pattern. Honestly, if I was a school district, I would stay on the NSLP because you can serve. So the big difference between them is with CACFP, they have a lot of sugar restrictions that a school district does not have. You guys have sodium restrictions, but you guys do not have sweet restrictions. So I would definitely, you can't do both. You have to pick one or the other. So if you are an at-risk only, that's all you do is just all you have with us is an at-risk, or you're a daycare and have at-risk, you have to do CACFP meal pattern requirements. A school district has an option. You can do CACFP meal patterns, or you can choose to do the National School Lunch Meal Pattern. You have that choice. So again, this is an example of the NSLP meal pattern. This is the school lunch meal pattern. They both require, for the main meal, the lunch or supper, they all require the 5 components. It's just, again, some things are allowable, some things are not. This is an example of the CACFP meal patterns. But again, both require all 5 components. The serving sizes might be a tad bit different, but at lunch or supper, you have to serve all 5 components, which is the milk, fruit, vegetable, grain, and meat alternate. At breakfast, it's the 3 for both milk, fruit, or vegetable, or a grain. And then at snack, it's 2 of the 5. It can be milk, vegetable, fruit, grain, or meat alternate. You can only have 1 beverage if you do serve a beverage. So it can't be like milk and juice. And you don't have to serve a beverage. You can just say you're doing cheese and crackers. You can do stuff like that too. But both programs, those are the components for both. But again, which meal pattern you choose depends upon what food items you choose. So schools are the only ones allowed to participate in offer versus serve for at risk. So if you offer 5 components at lunch or supper, they have to take 3 of those items. Again, this is only for schools. Schools are the only ones allowed to do offer versus serve for at risk. If it's a breakfast item, you have to offer 4 food items, and it can be from any of the components. Well, you have to have a grain, you have to have a fruit, and you have to have a milk. But the other item can be anything else. But you have to offer 4 food items, and then the child can take 3 out of the 4. An offer versus serve is not allowed for snacks. At snack time, the child has to take both components to be reimbursable. So for any school that's kind of curious, and this is also for our daycare side, if you're curious about the CACFP meal requirements, I'm going to briefly touch on them and then have page numbers. Again, I highly suggest if you want to know more in depth about the meal patterns for CACFP, come join us for the CACFP meal pattern training. As with CACFP, 1 item per day must be whole grain rich. So if you're only serving 1 meal for CACFP, that 1 meal has to have a whole grain item. If you serve cereal, it has to contain sugar under 6 grams, 6 grams per dry ounce. And we put a chart inside the training manual that we'll talk about here in just a moment. So there's a chart in there to let you know. And then you cannot have any grain-based desserts. And grain-based desserts is things like donuts, Pop-Tarts, cookies, anything like that cannot be served on CACFP. Again, this is an example of some of the grain-based desserts that are no longer allowed if you're doing the CACFP meal patterns. We have the red grains chart, which is located on page 162 and 163 of the training manual. Anything in red cannot be served. If it's red, it is not reimbursable. Something else with CACFP is there are sugar requirements for yogurt. You can have only 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces. With CACFP, you are able to substitute meat for breakfast for a grain up to 3 times a week. And then juice can only be offered once a day. Where schools, juice can be offered 50% for the week. And again, there's no sugar requirements for cereal or yogurt for the National School Lunch Program, only for CACFP. These are just some examples of meat alternates and their serving sizes. Sometimes people get confused about this. So, because yogurt's one that can be served, peanut butter is served a lot, and cheese. So again, these are just some highlights. And these actually go for both programs, for National School Lunch and for CACFP. The serving size right here is the same. This is what we see on both programs is cheese. Make sure, the biggest thing I can tell you about cheese is if it says cheese product, so if you look in this, you may not be able to see it in this yellow box, it says cheese product. Cheese product is not allowed. Most cheeses that are sliced and individually wrapped don't count towards the program. It's not natural cheese. It says cheese product. Cheese product, again, not allowed. Another cheese product is Velveeta. Velveeta is not allowed as a meat alternate. It can be an extra, but it doesn't count towards the program as a meat alternate. This goes for both programs as well. It doesn't matter if it's National School Lunch or if it is for CACFP. But with credible lunch meat, we have gone back and forth on this several times, what we're allowing. So lunch meats are only credible if they can be found in the USDA food buying guide, and label on the product reads exactly as stated as the food is purchased column. And I'll show you what that means. Or if you have a CN label, or if you have a product formulation statement. So if the lunch meat does not meet one of those requirements, and this is also in the training manual on page 130, we added this information in there, then we will take back reimbursement because it does not meet requirements. A lot of school districts have a CN label for their lunch meat. This, if you pull up the food buying guide, it has it's called food as purchased column. And for instance, this one says pork, mild cured, fully cooked, chilled or frozen, ham with natural juices. And then make sure you read the footnotes, but it also says smoked without bone. So the thing, the blue where it says pork, mild cured, fully cooked, chilled or frozen, it doesn't have to say chilled or frozen, but just say fully cooked, ham with natural juices, that has to be on the label. And you have to save these labels to show us that that's what it meets if you're using it based on what it says in the food buying guide. I will give some of you a cheat sheet. Most of the items that you're going to find are not in the already sliced meat section. You're going to have to go to the back and have meat sliced for you and ask for a copy of the label. One that is in the food buying guide, and we checked it out the other day, is turkey ham. Turkey ham is in the food buying guide. For a product to say turkey ham on it, Jenny O has a turkey ham. You can use it. It's, I think, you get 11.4 ounces for every pound. So it tells you how to serve it, but if you do want to serve lunch meat, make sure it is in the food buying guide. This is something else that we see frequently, on both programs, is these are not a vegetable. We will count chips if the first ingredient is corn, cornmeal, or flour. It's whole grain if it says whole cornmeal, or whole wheat flour. That's a whole grain product. But if the first ingredient is a vegetable, then they are nothing. These are an extra. They don't count for anything. We see it a lot. We see it a lot with schools when they do field trips. We see it a lot with daycare centers. If your chips begin with a vegetable, it does not count for anything. It only counts if it's a grain and it's corn, cornmeal, or flour. So something else new with the food buying guide, because I won't go into the food buying guide, we'll cover that in the meal pattern training, but just so you are aware, there is actually a food buying guide app, and the food buying guide app is so much easier to read than the book. It's much more clear. So it's on any, you can get on Android or iOS, but I have it on my phone actually, but it's much easier to read. So I highly suggest you use the USDA Food Buying Guide app. And this is for all programs. This is for National School Lunch. This is for everything. Anything in the food buying guide goes for all child nutrition programs. It doesn't matter if you're school or daycare, it goes for all programs. We do have what's called a CACFP crediting handbook. This book is amazing. It's amazing. I can't say enough great things about it. It is in the resource library under child nutrition in CACFP. If you don't like reading the food buying guide, if you don't want to really deal with that, get this book. This book breaks it down for you. It's an easy guide for daycares. It is fabulous. It's not as hard to read as the food buying guide, but it gives you as much or more information, in my opinion. When you open it up, this is what it looks like. This page may look a little familiar because we have it in our we have it in the training manual. My goal, I would love to take it out of the training manual completely and you only look at this book. We just came out with a new one the end of March. It's great. So if you want a quick product to see if things meet or don't meet, get this book, open it up, and it will tell you yes, no, maybe, and any instructions of what you need to do to find that. So the last thing I just want to make sure that you're aware of for anybody, and a lot of this is for schools too. Schools are used to keeping labels. We have made them keep labels for years on every single item they basically serve. But if you're using the CACFP meal patterns, you need to make sure that if you are using anything CN labeled, you keep your CN labels. You need to keep labels for your breakfast cereals. And what I would suggest is they have the side panel, cut out the side panel. That side panel will give you your nutrition information to let us know that you stayed under the sugar requirements. It tells us the name of the sugar that you purchased or the cereal that you purchased, and it will give us the ingredients to let us know if it was a whole grain item. If you're serving yogurt on CACFP, we have to ensure that, again, you're under the sugar requirements. So keep your yogurt labels. If you are buying the same yogurt every single time, and we'll be able to know that from receipts, just save one yogurt label. That's all you have to do. If you're buying the same cereals, like say all you buy is Cheerios and Kix, then just cut it out once. We can tell on your receipts that that's what you're buying, Cheerios and Kix. Another helpful hint, I didn't talk about it in here with cereal, but any whole grain like cereals, if use the chart in the training manual to make sure you're under that. But if not, if you want a cheat sheet, just type in Oklahoma WIC approved cereals and it will give you a list of anything that meets the requirements. So just to make it easy on yourself. Again, this is just a brief overview of the meal pattern requirements for CACFP. If you're doing CACFP, if a school's thinking about changing, this just tells you some of the differences between the National School Lunch Program and the CACFP meal pattern. But again, we're doing meal pattern requirements for CACFP training, 3 hours. I highly suggest signing up for that. So one of the last things that we need to talk about is your menu as served forms. If you're a school district and you use a production record, a school production record, you can remain to do that form. You know how to use the form. I consider keep doing it. Even if you're doing CACFP meal patterns, do what's familiar for your school, because there's nothing worse than trying to do a different form when you're used to doing something for the last 15, 20 years. But you are more than welcome to use this form if you would like to. So the menu as served form is what you will put to show what and how much food that you did serve. We've had questions about if you want to pre-fill out anything on here. You can pre-fill out the menu, because a lot of times you're going to know what you're going to serve. You may not know the fruit, but you're going to know that you do spaghetti with green beans and your milk. So you can pre-fill that out, but your serving sizes and stuff and the amount of food, like if you cook 10 pounds of hamburger meat, you can't pre-fill that out because you don't know till the day of how much you're cooking, depending on how many kids are there. But this is a copy of the menu as served form. But just make sure you're very detailed. We have to see, like, if you're, it's not as close, but if you're serving, and the example here is 1 32-ounce box of cornflakes, then just put that, make it easy on yourself. You don't have to sit here and say I served 36 3/4 cup of cornflakes. If you served 1 32-ounce box, put 1 32-ounce box. Please do not put 1 box of cornflakes, because if you bought your cornflakes from Sam's, it's going to be a different size than if you bought your box of cornflakes from Walmart. So you have to tell us specific. Did you cook 1 pound of hamburger? Did you cook or 1 pound of pasta? Did you cook 30 pounds of hamburger meat, 80-20, or was it 30 pounds of 90-10 hamburger meat? You kind of need to be a little bit specific with us because it depends. We have to make sure you're serving enough food. So we go and look at the food buying guide to ensure what you're serving is the correct amount. And if you're not sure how to do some of these forms, please contact your consultant. Trust me, they're used to looking at these forms day in and day out. That's all we do at a review is look at these forms. If anything is missing from the food production record or menu of serve forms, that's also when meals can be taken back. But again, when you document, please be very descriptive. You can put pounds, ounces, cups. If you're using a number 10 can, again, schools, you can still use what you have. You can always do what you have always done for your school, but this is mostly the CACFP one, which on the school one, you put your total quantity of what you're preparing. So if you're serving 10 number 10 cans, you put that on there, but then you also tell us that you serve half cup each, where menu as served forms is just telling us the total for everybody. It doesn't break it down as much as the school side does. But this is some food related issues that may cause an overclaim. If you're serving CACFP meal patterns and you don't serve that 1 whole grain rich item per day, or if you're doing school meal patterns and you're only serving supper, that 1 item has to be whole grain rich. We are taking back this year. It's been TA in the past, but this year, if you're CACFP, we are now taking back, we gave TA for 3 years. And so now it's actually technically 4 years. But now if you are not serving 1 whole grain rich item per day for CACFP, we will be taking back those meals. If you serve juice more than once a day on CACFP, or if you serve juice more than 50% if you're a school, if you serve lunch meat that does not meet requirements, if you are on CACFP and serve a grain-based dessert, we'll take back meals. If you serve any items that don't have a CN label that we cannot find in the food buying guide or a product formulation statement, then we will take back those meals. An example of is chicken nuggets. You bought chicken nuggets at Walmart, there's no CN label for it. It does not meet requirements, so therefore we'll take back meals for that. Anything else is if there's insufficient quantities, you didn't serve enough food, or if the quantities listed on the menu, or if there's anything missing from the menu of serve form. So say for snack, you serve juice and crackers, but you just put crackers down and you put no juice. There's nothing there. We'll take back those meals because you did not show us that you served 2 components for that day. So reimbursement and revenue. So the rates for CACFP, which are the same with schools, comes out in July. Reimbursement is allowed again for 1 meal and 1 snack. And CACFP at-risk revenue may be only spent again on child nutrition programs. I kind of talked about that earlier. Only the money that we give you can only be used for our program. If you're a school district, you can report everything 769 and revenue code 4750. And that's what we'll pull from you instead of the expenditure worksheet. You can do the expenditure worksheet, but really for you guys, your coding is so intricate, you can just code everything 769. That's CACFP. Oops. So claims, after 60 days, if you do not file a claim after 60 days, we cannot pay the claim. You will have to contact our office. Payment notices should be kept on file. So once you claim for CACFP, once you get paid, if you go back into your claim at the very bottom, it will say payment notice. It'll say print payment notice. You just print that out, keep it with all your information. And then we do have what's called a monthly record keeping checklist. It might help you. It's going to be a lot more. If you're only doing at risk, it's going to have a lot more items on there than what you would really need, because they have to, like daycare centers have to have applications and all this other stuff, but it is a good checklist. And if you use the slides about some of the record keeping that you have to have with this, it can help just to make sure you have everything. So this is new this year for CACFP, not for schools, but for CACFP. If you need to revise your claim, it's not out yet because the fiscal year doesn't start till October, so it won't be out until probably November. But you do have to fill out, we will have a CACFP claim revision form. We will not let you revise your claim until you fill out this form and send it in to us. You can send it to that email address that I gave you, or you can fax it to us. On the form, it will ask for a justification, and we've seen it before. Is like you accidentally put your snacks on your supper and your supper on your snacks, or you transpose two numbers. Things happen. We have to justify why anybody's adjusting their claim, and unfortunately, we've had so much change and transition up here in the last 5 years. It just, something happened and we quit doing it. So we are starting to bring this form back this year. It's just a claim revision form. We have to have documentation on why you're revising your claim. Nothing big. It's not that the end of the world. We're not like always going to deny it. We have to just have justification on why you changed your claim. So this was geared towards those that have one eating site. If you want to ever add a site, so if you're a school district and you're serving at your elementary, but now you want to serve at the high school too, you actually have to change your application. So if you do want to do that, you need to let us know now, because we have to change your application. You want to do it, you have to fill out a whole different application, so we need to do it now before the middle of the year. I would do it at the beginning of the year. But if you do want to add a site, and there's other requirements to this as well, that we have to have other documentation for at-risk, please contact our office if you want to change from going from one eating site to multiple eating sites. But if you're a school, you have one cafeteria, you serve everybody from there, that's fine. But if you're a school and you serve out of the cafeteria and then you're also sending food to another school site, that's 2 eating sites. So we need to change your application from a single site to multi-sited. It's very important that we do that. So in our training manual, our big thick one, we have our institution originals, which were some of the forms that I showed you. That starts on page 231. We also have a small at-risk section that starts on 269. If you want to know more, the administrative side is that at-risk manual, that guidance manual, which again, it's a great resource. It's only 90-some pages. Unfortunately, they made it really pretty and very colorful, so it made the file huge to where we can't send it. So unfortunately, you have to kind of download it yourself. But those again are just some of the pages of information that you might need. I thank you guys so much for coming today. I hope this was a good training. If there's anything that you would like to see or have added to it, again, we're trying to keep our trainings hour-wise smaller, so that way you guys can attend. They're better to attend if they're like 2 hours. I know 2 to 3 hours, depending on the subject. I hope you feel like this is worth it. We're always wanting information. So again, my name's Kendra Merveldt. I'll have one of the girls in the chat, if they don't mind, put my email address in there. If there's things that you want to see training wise, again, we are gung-ho. We have a school director, we have a child care director, and now we have, well, there's always been a training director, but we really do want to give a lot of information, and it feels like I hopefully am doing at least a training a week on some subject. So any subjects you want to see, I would like to feedback on this training. If you felt it was helpful, better than sitting through the 5-hour training for very little information about at-risk, I would like to know. We will send out certificates. Please give us a little bit of time to send those out. We are not giving any CECPD hours for this training. If you're a daycare, we are only giving CECPD hours for our big 5-hour training. That's all we're signed up for, to give those training credits. So we'll send a certificate out, 2-hour training. Thank you guys all for being here. If you have any questions about at-risk, you can also email them to me, or again to that CACFP@SDE. I will be doing this training again this afternoon. If you are multi-sited, we have a little bit more information in there, and we will be doing this training again. It'll just be the one in December as well. So if you want to come back and listen to that as well, you can do that. So thank you guys for coming. Have a great school year during this crazy, crazy time, and have a great day. And we'll stay on here for just a second to answer questions. So still feel free to type. We'll be on for about 5 more minutes.